All right, and we are live.
Woohoo!
I just want to say I think it's a great topic. I think it's very timely as well to some of the conversations that have been recently going on. So,
Well, for the listeners, should we tell them what the topic is?
Yes.
So, welcome to Sassy Saturdays, and today's topic is we'll be discussing bridging the trust gap, whether it's through personal branding, whether it's through a product, whether it's through a business, and building that trust so that people will be consumers of what you're offering. And
Josh, could you quickly introduce our two guests, and I'll also introduce. We have Eric here, who's a Salesforce expert, and Saad. Everyone knows Saad. Part of Dooley. He's a legend, and he's all over LinkedIn. So, and Jessie is a marketing. She's really good at marketing, and she hates the word expert, but she is one. And
Better than
Stella,
Guru.
better than Guru. Nick, I'll have you self-introduce. And Stella is in customer success. She is doing really well in that space, and she is she's transitioned from teaching to SaaS.
One of the success stories.
Yes.
Success story.
Yes. So if you are one of the 1,000 people dying to get out, Stella is a great one to message. Stella's like, I hate you so much right now.
Yeah, check out my featured section. That's one of my first thing I say is I write a ton about it, and I'm all about networking. So if that's the strategy you're in, I can share that. If you want to apply, that's not me.
Yeah. That's like buy a lot of lottery tickets with every paycheck.
Yeah.
And then one day you'll go to Disney World.
I feel like in every conversation there needs to be a transitioning teacher that has transitioned because that's the hottest thing happening right now. So the success stories, those are the ones we need to highlight compared to everything else.
And we have Ricky, who's taking.
It's like
Ricky.
middle of the night in Australia.
It's actually a really cool
Yeah,
look.
this isn't Sassy Saturdays for me, guys.
Wow. Saturday nights.
I'm
early morning.
I'm here from the future. Yeah, early morning, just out with the dog for a walk.
What's Saturday or what's Sunday have in tail for us, Ricky? Give us the love.
Yeah, it's a good day.
So today's war between Saad, Tom, me, and Eric.
Oh, we're doing this
fluffy
right here?
stuff,
Yes.
fluffy stuff versus
Let's
the
go.
non-fluffy stuff.
Yeah.
So let's
Okay, so-
segue into building trust though with a brand, right? Like
Yeah, the
looking
trust
at
gap.
your
That we're
brand.
talking about trust gap.
Yeah, that trust gap, right? Do you believe that fluff or things that really don't give you value as far as a post would help you build trust with somebody that you would want to recommend to a job or put your name on or do business with?
I was literally just thinking about this. I was like, I need to write this down so I don't lose this thought. Somebody said this the other day, whether it was on, I actually spoke with a couple of SDRs this week, and then new AE, the person, he just got promoted. Not my guy, Daniel. Like this person just got promoted this week. And he was like, man, while I was from SDR to AE, when I was sharing my experiences, my following was growing exponentially. And in the last 2 weeks or so, I'm seeing like my posts aren't doing it. I'm like, it's not that your posts aren't doing it. LinkedIn has changed the algorithm for a lot of reasons. Also, and now he was like, should I start doing what those people are doing? I'm like, hold on. There's people that are thinking that and they're selling out. This algorithm will change. When it does, what do you want to be known for? Because this fluff is going to die. I'd rather, and I said this, I'm like, I'll speak from my personal side. I see you posting fluff tomorrow, I'm going to unfollow you because I'm not learning anything. I'm actually truly against it. For me, it's still a personal, professional platform. I use words like bro, bruh, all that stuff in my LinkedIn post, which is sales strategic advice. So you can still use your personality, you can still be wacky, but if you're going down that direction, then you're going to lose me and lose my trust. That's just the fact.
Syed followed me this week, actually. That's what woke me up. Yeah, he dropped me off the system this week.
No, I didn't. None of you here have gone like no, but I think it's not an ego thing. Think back to a few months ago. Why did all of us come onto LinkedIn? And what attracted us to what we started doing? it's easy to forget. It's easy to get carried away because LinkedIn was not about influence. It became about influence in the last 2 years when everybody decided to come onto LinkedIn because of the pandemic, new tech companies popping up, new jobs popping up. For transitioning, for learning, that's why people came. So they can learn how to transition. They can learn how to do this. They learn how to do that. And then all of a sudden, nobody made an announcement that, by the way, we're about influence now. It just kind of happened. And you get conditioned into reading and understanding what's in front of you. And what was in front of us, it all of a sudden it went from that to what it is today.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
and
no, yeah. And I don't think Josh or Stella, like, think about you guys when you started, right, on transitioning your careers. Imagine if your feed had been all that other stuff. Do you think you could have been where you are now with all of that probably being 80% and then the business stuff being 20% versus the opposite, right? You guys were able to transition so well and learn because you were networking with people that were giving, sharing their insights, and showing you what the world you were trying to get into.
Well, and part of that, Tom, is that we were able to find people that are, and I hate to use the word thought leaders, but are well regarded in the community, such
Right.
as yourself. And so I could say, well, Tom is very insightful, and he brings a lot of like common sense stuff and thought provoking. Let me see who he's connected with because those are probably like minded
Right.
people, and so you have this network that you can tap into that. And if you look at somebody like Eddie is a good example of somebody that brings some good stuff, but he also is like bra dude, stuff like that. So he injects a little bit of like personality into it, but he's still bringing the value.
Right.
well, and the thing that I think people are kind of missing about it is things aren't always as binary and mutually exclusive. Like, so the way that we consume content makes us very interested in a hot take where we offer the wrong thing and the right thing next to it, and there's no complexity. And the truth is, like, I'll give you a great example of it. So if you were to think about LinkedIn like a physical town, like think of it as like a second iteration of, say, San Francisco, right? I'll give you a real example of how this played out in my life in the last 2 years. The opportunities that I was seeking when I had my real life zip code where I'm sitting in this chair, which is 34243 Florida, God's waiting room, no business here. If you want to be a lawyer or if you want to be a doctor or if you want to sell cars, there's plenty of business. But other than that, forget it, right? Now, LinkedIn actually reflects that. So when I switched my zip code to the actual zip code of Salesforce Tower, guess what? I went from being offered positions by the algorithm at Ace Hardware at the tool counter to director of product at Apple, director of sales enablement at Spotify. Okay. Now, I'm pretty sure that in making that one click, I didn't suddenly gain a bunch more experience or value or insight, right? But that's the thing about scaling something virtual, okay, is that there's these unintended consequences that have to kind of play out for us to even really reckon with them. So to that point, in the last 2 years, what happened was that for better or worse, where you live matters less if you understood that and you could act on it. And that's really what we're talking about with like the transition. And then what's also happening that's really interesting, and it's just like a tech town, is whoever moved there 6 months before you loves to shit on the people that moved there 6 weeks after you and tell you how like you should have seen how cool it was. And you're like, when? Like 5 years ago? And they're like, no, 6 months ago. And it's like, well, when did you start? And it's like a year ago. And it's kind of like, do you not know what a hypocrite is? And like, so that lack of awareness, it comes out in even the most well-intentioned ways. Like, there's this guy I really like on LinkedIn, and I happened to run into him on Twitter, and he was saying the following snarky thing on Twitter, which I don't doubt was trolling, but he goes, influencers, just be authentic. And then he was like, same influencers, uses pod for engagement. And then all these people rolled in to share their hot take about how like basically that pods were mutually exclusive with authenticity. And hey, Eddie, so like all I did was came back and said like pods are not mutually exclusive with authenticity. And he goes, well, could you elaborate? Like we were going to debate it. And I said, yeah, sure. Here you go. All of the logos that we look up to in SaaS that have been really successful in supporting their staff with their personal brands. And in my mind, that's Gong, for example. There's no universe where they are not fundamentally relying on pods to achieve their goal. Now, does that mean that Gong's not authentic? That's a nuanced conversation we could have. But what I would say is that authenticity doesn't suddenly disappear when you have a strategy. And that, like, when you're looking at these things of like the town used to be so cool before all these new people moved here, you know, you're seeing so much of that play out in like the humans of LinkedIn, aside from whatever strategy might be at work. And like when you talk about the algorithm, like I had this really liberating insight where I said, I don't care anymore about like what the algorithm's doing or that I need to post twice a day or whatever nonsense. Here's what I care about. If I run into someone on LinkedIn that I've never heard of and I go, this person's super cool and I really like what they're talking about, what gets my rocks off is if I look and I have 100 mutual connections with that person. Like that matters so much more to me than like having 10,000 followers or 100,000 followers, because you could just as easily lose that asset. Yeah. But if I have that sense that like I'm somehow part of a tribe with these people that I also care about what they're doing, that sort of speaks to that difference between relevance and personalization that we're always talking about with outbound. It's like, I don't care who they are. I know what they're doing is relevant to me.
I want to stick to what you just said. Let's stick to the follower piece, the importance of that, and more importantly than that, let's go back to Gong. Devin Reed, Sarah Brazier, the original LinkedIn influencers. If I ask you, what do you remember? If I ask you, what is Devin known for, and what is Sarah known for? None of you are going to say motivational stuff. I can write that down on a piece of paper, sign a contract, and sign it off to anybody. None of you are going to say motivational stuff. That's what Gong benefited off of, because Gong was like, okay, you know what? We're going to go on this play that we're going to use data. We're going to use data to suggest our excellence. But then this is what goes wrong. Companies are like, hey, let's start with data experts and let's go be thought leaders. And that's what's going to make people buy. So companies, not Gong, other companies today maybe, or I don't know, they might be trying to figure it out. They're like, okay, let's let us become thought leaders. Let me ask you this. Who made you the thought leader? And if you're saying thought leadership is going to get you the sale, now let's forget B2B sense. Let's take it into B2C. Jess, if you're walking on a street and somebody comes up to you and goes like, hey, I'm a thought leader, would you buy from them? Be like, no, get away from me, Jehovah's Witness. Relax. Who are you? So if education, yeah.
That brings us to how do you generate that trust?
Yeah. So, okay. So that's a good question. Okay. So if education is the final point, then I'm not going to educate. You're not going to be able to educate me, Amir, if I don't trust you.
Right.
And I'm not going to trust you if I don't like you. Now, in this today's sense of LinkedIn, that likeliness is starting from a lot of places. It's starting from basic human-to-human interaction. For me personally, I'm trying to go to VP level, director level. So basic content is not going to sell it for me. So for me to like somebody, I need you to trust me, teach me something that I'm going to apply in my business. So that's for me, that likeliness, that is level one. So let's think about what Gong did there. Gong was producing these Gong Lab content, but it was doing whatever. And they were like, yo, Sarah, Devin, go all out. And guess what they decided to do? They had synergy. They were saying the same things, but they were using their experience. They were like, hey, I took this and did that, and I got this result. And you can do that too. Versus, go get it, Tiger. That doesn't do anything. Go get it, Tiger doesn't give me anything.
Sure.
Well, bridging the
That
trust
really
gap
doesn't for
really
me.
comes down to, for me, personalization. So you're getting into a little bit of that personalization thing. So it's, yes, you need to, build your credibility, be able to educate people, but also be able to connect with them as a human on a human level. And a lot of the time that is standing for something and not standing for everything. So you have to have an opinion and you have to be okay with people coming and talking to you about that. And just because they disagree with you doesn't mean you still can't build a relationship with them. So it just comes down to like regular, basic human relationship building. So you have reciprocity, you have listening. So, you were saying earlier, Saad, it's not about the ego. So, it really isn't about the ego. It's about taking your ego away and giving more than you receive. And if you go out and you make sure that the people that you want to engage with, or that you want to engage with you, that you're out there engaging with them 10 times more, they're going to notice and then they're going to come back and they're going to connect with you. I'm pretty sure that's
Nick,
how I
you were
connected
saying-
with all of you guys. I just went out and spammed all of you with like likes and comments.
Yeah, you did.
That was it. That's what got
Now
my
we're all friends.
attention.
Every
You open up
morning,
your notifications and you see this person just light up your day every day. You're like, all right, you got my attention. What is it?
Jesse,
What's
I
up?
think that's a very smart thing to do, because on the side of that is you have a very unique role in your company, and like you're generating all the leads. So, and I had a conversation with Amir about it a little bit, but then that's what it comes down to is, regardless of what you use to attract people or get people to come to you, when the door opens to your candy shop, I know what I'm buying. I know what I'm getting from Jesse's shop, right?
Data.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would
there you
say,
go.
I'm going to jump in and say when I started out in June, so I was just like a LinkedIn, I'm just going to like look at what people are doing. I noticed it was a lot of like, I called it like encyclopedia entries. Like, I'm just like, who are these people? It sounds very like transactional to me. And so I said, when I was going to start, I'm going to be me, myself, and I the whole time. Of course, producing content that's insightful or showing what I'm trying to learn to get into tech, but as well as engaging with people, leaving the comments on the people that are like-minded to me. And so that's what, I started looking at communities or influencer lists, but I'm sorry, like half of those are just not it for me. I will vet them. I look at what they're posting and I'm like, your one sentence isn't doing it for me. I like the long form, so that's what I gravitate towards. So I think each person is a little bit different. I want to see the humor. I want to see music or, be yourself, but as well as producing something that's knowledgeable. So I think each person, like if LinkedIn were to give us a little survey and say, why are you here? And then kind of filter our stuff that way, I would very much go in that direction.
I think it's I think maybe redefining what is fluff or what is not fluff is also important, because in my head, I don't think using friendly terms or being personable or having a personality is fluff. If this is what I ask myself, is what I'm putting out only making people happy? That's fine. Yeah, let's be real. That's what all human beings should do. We are all positive people. There's a way to make everybody happy. But at the end of the day, I'm a salesperson. I'll speak for myself. I am different. That's why I work for a company that encourages personality. But at the end of the day, I would like to think I'm known for my sales excellence or my professional excellence. I don't think this for me is and with respect, I'm not taking anything to the heart. I don't think it's a matter of the new LinkedIn versus old LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a platform for professional excellence, and we recently started having conversation wanting to redefine it. No, it's not professional, it's not personal, whatever. Let's go to the people that build their shit and ask them what it actually is and why they keep triggering the algorithm, because that's what they're doing. They're trying to encourage more business, more people coming on.
So here's the thing: LinkedIn's getting to be a
Can
creator's
I play devil's
platform
advocate
now.
with you, Saad?
Yeah.
What was that, Ricky?
Yeah, I just wanted to play devil's advocate here for a second, because I don't think LinkedIn was a platform created for professional excellence. LinkedIn was a platform created for recruitment. And I have a little bit of a different view here. I personally love going on LinkedIn and learning. That's why I use it. But I see a lot of hypocrisy in the way people use it. Like they only want to see certain things. The beauty of the platform is it displays what you want to see. Well, it tries to, at least. And if you're into fluff and you like that, you'll probably just be pushed in that direction. And LinkedIn's a big bloody place. There's enough people employing that are looking for motivational, happy, and engaging people.
Yeah.
And you'll find them on LinkedIn if that's what you want to be. You're not going to find Saad, and Saad's not going to employ you because he's looking for sales excellence. But in my recruitment, I'm looking, if somebody was posting, they're brave enough to post, I'm looking for attributes, not skills. So if I'm employing someone and they positive, motivational, they show up every day, they're generous and they're giving, they're showing all the attributes I want, I'll make them a sales expert. I just want people with the attributes. So that's like what I'm looking for in recruitment. And I think like people can just do what they need to do there. and that's fine. I think like we're operating in that top 1%, and I don't know if that advice is relevant for the 50% starting out.
Yeah.
You know,
So, okay.
certainly if you've got a
one
product to
sec.
sell, if you're in B2B sales, this is gold.
Nick wanted to say something. Go on,
Sorry,
Nick.
go
Sorry.
on.
Thanks. So, to me, I think as we're talking about content here and we're talking about the trust gap, to me, I think people they have this habit of putting other people into categories, right? And so you're trying to recognize a pattern with how you interact with someone and put them in a category. I think there's really three things that they look for when building trust: consistency of behavior, authenticity, and transparency.
Yeah.
Those last two kind of go hand in hand. But if you do all of those things, I think you can start to build trust. But there's something else here. So, kind of going back to Eric's point, you can build trust over time from scratch, but you can also borrow trust. And so, when Eric was talking about he sees somebody who has 100 connections in common, the likelihood of him having a trusting relationship with that person is very high because they're borrowing the trust of all those other relationships that he has in common with them.
I want to add.
Yeah,
don't want
it's a really good point. And
Yep. Go on, Ricky.
there's a lot of people on LinkedIn that I don't necessarily like. And I think it's very important to define what that trust is. And if I trust, like if I read a post and I'm talking about, John X, and I know John X's personality and I know John X's views on the world, I could trust how John X would respond to that piece of content. And to me, that's the important bit, right? It doesn't matter what that reaction is or what his views are. That consistency, Nick, that you talk about, to me is absolutely incredible and important in building trust. And you need that consistency for people to be able to understand that on a platform like LinkedIn, where you're being overwhelmed with information on a daily basis. So if you're not doing it consistently, they're not going to be able to build that understanding of your views or of your knowledge base or whatever it is that they can base that trust off of. And LinkedIn obviously does a really good job at trying to build some of that social proof, right? Which we know in sales, social proof helps bridge that trust gap. And those connections, those common people that you're engaging with or or have as followers, that is the social proof that LinkedIn brings to this trust gap.
So I wrote something down over here. I don't know if y'all can see, and I'm about to admit something, and I'm about to share a story. LinkedIn used to help me get rid of my imposter syndrome. So let me share a story. When I first started out as a rep, I started out as a company selling to lawyers, and they didn't build their BDR team till they got their Series D funding at a couple $2 billion. And this was my first sales job. I started as an AE. I had no idea what I was doing. I had to use sales, all these tools, learn how to talk to lawyers. I hit quota 2 out of 4 months, not bragging, because I got moved to the BDR team right after that. Now, anytime you tell somebody I went from an AE to BDR, you'll be like, oh, that was a demotion. The company chose not to build a BDR team till they had the market figured out. And this is what they decided to do. They moved 6 AEs, full cycle AEs, into the BDR team and hired 4 outbound BDRs, external BDRs. The BDRs that moved from AEs to be also, by the way, quick fact, they paid the BDRs and AEs exact same. Now guess where? Get this. So this is my why behind the issues with LinkedIn right now. So when everybody says BDR should sell the meeting, not the product. I started as an AE, and my 100% was being split into cold calling, demoing, and closing. And now I got presented this opportunity that I've kind of figured out how to close. I knew what to think about when to close. So now 100% of me was getting split into cold calling, qualifying, and discovery. So when everybody was selling the meeting, I was selling the product. The entire company, it's on my LinkedIn, the entire company was converting at an average of 2.3%, and I was converting at an average of 5.6%. I broke the company's comp plan. Now, You only see that. But what happened in between that was my manager, the first day I started as a BDR and I was stressed out. He was like, "Saad, this is not a demotion. And I'm going to tell you a few things right now." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Just think of it this way." He's like, "You're never going to go to a job interview. You're never going to get called for a job interview till you don't give in resumes, till you don't just give your resume, right? Just apply willy-nilly." Cool. Okay. "You're never going to go withdraw money from your bank account till you haven't just made deposits." I was like, "Okay, where are you going with this?" He's like, you're never going to get a meeting with the prospect till you haven't made enough meaningful deposits." I was like, "Interesting. Cool. Where did you get that?" He's like, "This man called Josh Braun on LinkedIn." I was like, hold on. What else did you get from this man on LinkedIn that he's like, "You'll be surprised." And then he basically opens up a world. I was like, wait, hold on. You're telling me, and I literally said this to him, you're telling me I can figure things out I was just present on LinkedIn. I was never active. And then it started from Josh Braun, Bilal Batrabi, Kyle Coleman, and a few others. I've shared the story with Tom. I have I can talk about it. I can show you guys. All these sales books, split their difference, all this stuff. And then they didn't do anything for me. And then I went and saw these 4, 5, 6 people talking about how not the books, but their application of these books. So all this, whatever I'm saying today, the person that I am today, I am a product of LinkedIn. So I'll tell you what my concern is. I'm not learning anything anymore. I'm afraid that it's not giving me the thing that got me to where I am today. So you know what? I'm afraid. That's basically where I'm coming from.
Okay.
You just got to level up that circle, Syed. You just got to level up, man. You got to find a new network now. Like, that's okay. I mean, look, that's not an ego thing, but I'm at the same point as I am giving more to LinkedIn than I am taking. Jessie is probably my newest, fresh kind of person to follow because she's feeding me first data, right? And I'm enjoying that. Where the rest of us, like, I'm homies with everybody. I know, we're starting to get there, but like, you got to branch out. You got to upgrade that circle. There's 800 million people on this platform. Like, dude, you just got to branch out. Like, we're just kind of getting in a silo. And that's where you got to go outbound, right? And start maybe going out there and networking and finding some new people. So I don't know, because I'm not knocking on everybody on my feed, right? Like, I'm happy with people, but I'm not gaining either. Like, I'm not learning much anymore from
I don't think it's something to take offense from. Yeah.
I just wanted to bring it back to the topic of that, how to build trust on the platform. So you've built trust, right? You've done that. And I think the perspective that you have now of the platform, certainly LinkedIn's dynamic, it's changed a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
But there's a hint of that, back in my day.
Yeah.
Right. And that's about the user experience too. That's about, because a BDR who's just starting out now has Josh Braun, has Kyle Coleman, has Bilal, but also has Saad Khan there to learn from. And that's the difference, right? And your perspective has changed more so than the platform. The platform obviously has changed too. In building trust, that consistency that Josh Braun has, as an example, people trust him. Once you get to the top 2% of operators, you might look at Josh Braun's stuff and say it's fluffy.
Yeah.
That's literally what people will use to describe Josh Braun's sales material is fluff. Now, I still love it, and I still use it for BDR training.
Yeah.
Because that fluff is actually fucking useful.
Yeah.
That is useful fluff. Right? And it's because he has, and if you look at his LinkedIn messaging, it's nauseating to people who spend all day on LinkedIn because it's the same shit on repeat. Right? And that goes to Nick's statement about that consistency of the message.
Mm-hmm.
And you can trust Josh Braun's system. You can trust Josh Braun to give you the same answer to a question. And if I listen to a cold call and say, I could tell you how Josh Braun would criticize it, because he has built that brand around his approach. And he's done an incredible job of that, even though we might consider it fluff.
So that's a great point.
I'm on a highway.
So we were all laughing earlier, if you see this, and there's some background chatter going on, and we always have fun in these LinkedIn live chats. Ricky is just showing us the birds around him, and we're talking about Saad's hair and the LinkedIn police coming for Eddie. So,
Well, I thought that's why he was walking around outside in the dark because the police were chasing him, and so we were
Ricky
going
or
to be
Eddie?
yeah we were going to be that alibi, and then we got
Right.
Eddie that's
This
down
is
there.
this is Melbourne. Let me just tell you, we have a very different relationship with the police than you might in the States.
And then we got Eddie down at the bottom. It looks like he's in a studio ready to pop off with some
He
rhymes,
just did
and
Whiskey
some bars.
Wednesday album. Him and Ding just did a track together for Whiskey Wednesday. That's what he's doing. He's rapping over there.
Don't knock on a Wednesday. Bro, I'm not even going to start. Nobody knocks Whiskey Wednesdays.
I did it. I was giving you a compliment.
Oh, my man.
I was saying you were getting your album ready for Whiskey Wednesday debut, man.
Oh, yeah. I thought you said something else.
Well, that's why
Nobody knocks on whiskeys, bro.
You ready to go to the streets? I got Syed with me. We'll go.
Bro, I'm starting to miss you so much, man.
I'm
This is
always
the
ready
first
for
time I
the
see you in video in such a long time.
So
Well,
is
I
there,
want
Me and Eddie have been bantering for a couple weeks now. Eddie knows. I have much love.
Eddie's going to start out every conversation with yeah.
Get it.
So
I didn't know. You ain't know. Honestly, man, my thought on the subject, I like everybody's thoughts on what they were saying. The one thing that I don't know, I'm doing things a little bit differently, and I'm kind of glad. I don't really have like one consistent thing that I want to chase. And I keep telling people the same thing, like find, how like James Perry tells me, find your tribe. The one thing that I've noticed that works for me, and what I've told other people, is find your purpose on the platform in the first place, then post. Find why you're there in the first place. If you're somebody who's looking for a job, then make your content, make your connections, make your outreach driven around that specific topic. If you're looking to, let's say, be B2B sales, if you're trying to, sell a product or a service, revolve everything around that. For me, I already have what I want out of the platform. I already have, let's say, what it is financially in my life. So what I'm trying to do is project information that I'm passionate about, which is LinkedIn and sales, right? That's what it is for me. But I already know what I want out of it. And some of you on the call already know. So I think that once you find your purpose, people will understand and trust you from it because there's a certain passion aspect that comes along with it. And I think that's where a lot of it comes and where it's driven from.
I think people get to, sorry, go ahead, whoever I interrupted.
No, go.
Well, it's so easy to get caught up in looking at a person that you personally view as being somehow higher up than you, whatever that even means, that you then brand into your brain that is the one right way to do it. And you then start making these assumptions based on that. And what I think is a really important thing to not lose sight of with LinkedIn, but you should kind of expand it outside that platform, is you have your content that's for your customers. And like, if you're not doing that and you're doing a role like, let's say, B2B SaaS, you're really doing yourself some career suicide by not having content that's going to be an obvious value add for your customers as a community. And you need to be like in an authentic and intelligent way, building a community with those customers such that your impact is obvious. Yeah. But there's another side to that coin, which is the tribe thing. It's naive to think that your tribe can be your customers. Like at a certain point, business is like atavistic, okay? And like there's a place where I may wind up competing in a visceral fashion with friends of mine, people from my tribe, that we're going to go toe to toe. But because they're my tribe, I'm going to be excited if I win or if they win. And why that happens is because I made the right through network with my customers, that my tribe knows that when they come to my customers, because they're my tribe, I'm excited that they won my customer and I didn't, and vice versa. And that's the two kind of plays going simultaneously. And what I find so fascinating about the recent thing with LinkedIn people going over to Twitter is that I'm a Salesforce nerd, okay? And like, if you want to effectively function in Salesforce, Twitter is your main channel of communication, like de facto. Like I find out, and like another one I'll give you is InfoSec. So like, if you want to find out in real time what's going on with like a hack or whatever, even more accurate than Down Detector is InfoSec Twitter, which is now easier than ever to follow. and you can see real time like these important pieces of information that are relevant to your livelihood. Now, what's funny is that entire time I was in that Salesforce bubble on Twitter, all of these Salesforce people are always tweeting about how much LinkedIn sucks and how like they're never going to go over to LinkedIn. And then you have at the same time all of these salespeople that I'm friends with on LinkedIn being like, hey, I think I should start doing Twitter. But they totally missed the boat because, like, to the point about the fluff thing, what they wind up doing is they say, aha, Twitter is where I can talk about my dog or beer or whatever. And it's like, if I'm being honest, LinkedIn is where you can talk about your dog or beer or whatever and not destroy your credibility if you're establishing those two table stakes, which is that I add value to this population of people in this fashion. And then I also add value to this population of people. And I think that what you should really be aspiring for is, can I reach out to someone that's my hero in a particular space and have them accept the connection? Not about status, not about clout, but because like I'm doing my thing here in such a way that this person can see from that far away that I'm someone that there's a value to them as like a mentee and connecting with. And like, that's the thing I'm proudest about, is that if I see someone out there that I'm like, man, that person blows my mind and like I want to know them, 90% chance that when I send them a request, like blank, like totally blank connection request, that they just click it right away. Like I don't have to wonder about it.
Eric, you've earned that.
Thanks.
You know for a fact you've earned that. That nobody has written down that formula. Right?
That's what happened when I started building my brand, when I was prospecting at my company. I mean, it changed once I started being more vocal on LinkedIn, to where cold calling wasn't a thing anymore. I could call people and they were like, oh yeah, Tom, I know you from LinkedIn, right? Or I was making that relevancy. And like you said, Eric, I could my connection rate went like through the roof once I started establishing a brand on LinkedIn, to where my prospects were wanting to connect with me and having a good time with it, right? And so you built that credibility and pick up the phone and have that relevancy and that credibility that they knew who you were, what you stood for, versus when you're out there prospecting and nobody knows who the hell you are in their inbox of some name, title, how cool your company is. I don't know who the hell you are. But if I know you from LinkedIn and I know your brand and you send me a message, I'm probably responding to you whether I do business with you or not, because you're a homie and I know you, and I'm going to at least close the loop with you.
That's strategic thinking on LinkedIn, right? You're hitting three-prong. It's a three-prong attack. Every sequence I build for my team, LinkedIn touches a part of them. LinkedIn touches the first part of them.
Yep. So here's a question for all of you.
Jesse, could I?
Yeah? What?
Go, Amir. I was just going to ask Jesse a question. But Amir, you go for it.
We're also.
I was just going to say, like, you know, you're the marketing expert here. Like, I know outbound sales, right? So I'd be deferring to you for anything marketing.
Yeah.
And
yes.
You know, like I still go off that old school, like people do business with others that they know, like, or trust. Like, I don't even know if that's still bloody accurate, but that's still what I work off of.
Yeah.
What percentage would you say in terms of building know, like, and trust? And Nick's given us a great analogy, or a great summary of how to build trust. What percentage would you say should be based on just liking someone, right? Because like I do outbound sales, that's great, and people are going to be like, oh, am I going to win on that? Or is he the best? Is he the expert in outbound? But then I show you that like I'm a dog person, and like this is what I do all day is like me and my pup. And all of a sudden, I reckon that's going to get me more sales, because I'll be like, oh, no, I want to do business with that outbound guy who's fucking dog obsessed.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's like,
but
I'm pulling my percentage out of nowhere, but that's everything, that's like 100%. I'm a marketer. Of course, that's what I think. So you're building that relationship. You're building that trust. So, you guys are doing an awesome job. Saad, you said you have LinkedIn as a part of your sequence. So I'm guessing that you're going and you're following, or you're connecting, you're sending a message. You're not giving them a pitch slap. There's no like, hey, let me sell you this product. And there's nothing like that. It's just
we're never sending connection with notes. Genuine.
Yes. And then, the thing is, we see each other on LinkedIn all the time. We're all engaging, right? But there's thousands of lurkers that don't engage. And they're the ones who are watching. And as they're watching us, it may take 3 months. It may take 6 months. But they're watching and they're slowly building a relationship with us. And we don't even know it. And then
Well,
all
our
of a sudden
clients
you
are
get
all
a message
lurkers,
in
right?
your DMs, and they're like, "Hey," and that's the trust that you were able to build by having those consistent posts
Yes.
and building that audience.
So here's
Decision
my
makers are
question.
lurkers.
Exactly.
Like, just
Oh,
full stop.
absolutely. Why would they come out and say that? Like, yeah, no, they're hiding in the shadows for sure.
Well, they're
No,
definitely not posting on my expert material about cold calling, right? Like,
Oh, for
you know,
sure.
I don't think lurkers are
they might
bad.
want a cold caller, but they're not
You know,
engaging in cold content about
I
it.
think the lurkers are better than the fluffers. I'll say that. I'd rather be a lurker than a fluffer.
and we should show
Well,
how to
you know
look
what a
at them.
fluffer is? I
But
reckon
you
you'd rather be a
Don't cover
lurker.
me. Don't
Yeah.
cover me. I'm gonna go.
Like
Yo,
even
so
if you have
Yeah,
this friend
I'd rather.
from forever ago, Ricky, that you're like, oh, I just have this old,
So
pool, this
Yeah.
network of contacts that I'm gonna, always sell to. They're still like now that everybody's reviewed everywhere. So even if you're your closest friends, they're gonna go check you out on G2 or wherever they might find you online and see, okay, Ricky's my buddy, but actually I can probably get a better deal with more features if I go with this thing, that I just found on the G2 grid. So Ricky, I love you, man, but this is why I'm not going to choose you, and I'm going to give you all the great feedback of why I'm not going to choose you because I
I want
love
to say
you.
something
But
about lurkers.
Yeah, I guess you need that expertise, like Sod says.
I
But
want to.
I get like, I don't envy the people who have a product to sell on LinkedIn, right? Because that's the trust gap for me that's so hard. Like, I'll see Devin Reed or the people from Gong, and I'll look at their material and go like all you're doing is selling Gong in a clever way using statistics, which I don't even necessarily agree with 50% of the time, right? So how do you go and bridge that trust gap when you're going from posting about content that you know and love to the product, the slightly more product focused,
here's the thing. Two
where
questions
people
actually.
see intention behind it?
Can I make a point about lurkers?
can you mute Ricky while they're talking?
Can I make a quick point about lurkers? We were on lurkers just before we move away
Go
from
on.
that. This is a I'd be more wary of the lurkers of today because they're possibly doing is compartmentalizing learning so they're ready to share their experience and expertise. Somebody said this once: you can't, or I don't know, maybe you can't write or share expertise till you haven't learned and like earned it or like gotten it within you. So I mean, that's how I started. I used to be a lurker for a long time. So just
So,
a quick
Sad,
thought on that.
that's a great point, and that brings me to the same question, right? How much is this, visibility by posting on LinkedIn go towards, generating that trust? For example, Saad posts, Eric posts, people are visible. Does that go to building trust?
I think it does because it's familiarity, right? Look back at our evolutionary history, right? If you were to go knock on the village wall and you're asking them to come inside, hey, can I please come inside and have some of your food and water? No, get the hell out of here, right? That's the same thing as that pitch slap. But if you're coming and knocking on the village wall and you're saying, hey, I have a gift for you. I want to give you some of my food, or I want to give you some milk, or whatever I have, right? You're building that familiarity. And then over time, you're inserting yourself into their tribe. And now they see how they can benefit from that relationship with you. So, a good content posting strategy, we're talking about the difference between fluff and insight. If you're constantly providing insight, constantly providing value, you're building that familiarity inside of your audience's mind, and that ultimately results in trust.
Well, so and some of this is you talk about the authenticity or even what's your rationale, what's the reason why you're posting, because we have seen and I'll just call them vultures where they're posting on there and I can say the people that are all of a sudden experts on how to transition teachers out of the classroom into careers where they're posting content and as soon as you like respond to it they're in your DMs trying to sell you a course. And I have no hate on anybody trying to sell a course, But when it's just not authentic, when and on top of that, half of the people that supposedly have this course haven't even done the work to do the transition themselves. So it's not even authentic, because all they're doing is listening to other people and then creating this course or this product to sell you, that they themselves have no understanding, either the emotional aspect of what's happening, or the experience.
So we talked.
So,
Go ahead, Amir.
go. Okay. Very quickly. Um, I was introduced to a bunch of transitioning teachers through Josh here, and what I see is, I hate to say the word, but they're all over the place, and they just get the incorrect
Elitist.
information at
Elitist.
times.
Amr is an elitist.
No,
Not
well,
at all. I try to help where I can, right? But I've given up on that because many of them just don't seem to understand the information that's being given out. Right now, what is trust? For example, if it was marketing, I would go to Jesse. If it was Salesforce, I would go to Eric. If it was something to do with BDRs, I would go to Saad, or SDR training, Tom, or someone who knows their space, right? But Eric had a great point about tribes. So the teachers are still in their tribe, and it's an echo chamber, which I posted about. So they just keep listening to the other teachers, and they can't seem to get out of that for some reason, right? If you want to go to CS, you need to talk to Stella or someone else who has already done CS, and it's a given. If you want to go into sales, talk to someone who's in sales. Follow those influencers, not influencers, those sales leaders who are actually giving value to you, and can help you get a step up, because most of you are looking for jobs, right? You're looking to get out of and transition through that space. But if all of you are getting that incorrect information, then that's going to be no use to you.
Yeah, I have to step in as a, former teacher that recently transitioned and say that someone gave me really good advice. A third of your network should be the people that are in the same boat as you. A third should be where you want to be, and a third should be where you want to be in 5 to 10 years, and focus your time and energy on those people. So that's what I did. I went to VP, CEOs, founders in sales, product, marketing, CS, project management. And so now my network is full of all these people I'm not just like siloed into CS. So, comes the time when I'm like, oh, time for something different. I have people in marketing that I could reach out to, or I still get to see their content, and really thinking about the part of tribes. Placing yourself in communities that do all these things. I'm a part of CS communities, sales communities, and marketing communities. I have a pulse on what's going on there. I'm no expert in every single thing, no way. But I know what the people are saying in those spaces. What are their challenges? And then how are people responding to those challenges? So look at your day and week and month and see where you're devoting that time and energy. And if it's the same people, as you said, that are in the same boat as you, maybe time to rethink your strategy.
There's a very good common theme occurring in everybody's responses since we started the conversation. It was about fluff or all that stuff, but then it's coming down to when you want to convert, when you want to get a job, when you want to get the business or whatever, you're going to the right person who's not maybe necessarily about fluff, but just relevant to their own domain. So this leads us into a good question or conversation. People excellence jumping into things is, so people say fake it till you make it, right? Or do whatever you need to do to get your hype, get your brand, whatever. There is a very interesting and good problem that comes of that, which is people buying into their own hype. It's consistently happening on LinkedIn, on posts that I've made, other people have made, where in a strategic conversation, you have every right to jump in, but jump in and know what you're talking about, because your resume is available for people to see. I'm seeing people with 10,000 whatever followers. Ton, I'm not talking about you. And we had this conversation yesterday. Your follower count has nothing to do with what you know. So stay in your lane. Stay in your lane, because I don't care, but you're visible. What you're saying is visible, and you're potentially deterring others to do business with you.
So you
That's
have
a great point,
500,
Saad.
or doesn't justify your value. Sorry, Amir, but it
No,
doesn't
so
justify your value or your expertise at all.
So I guess I guess
It's a
that,
pretty
How do you
high
get
bar, though.
expertise?
I need to pick. I guess I need to start picking a lane. Tom says I'm all over the place.
I
Um,
never said that. Oh, stop. I'm not the LinkedIn police. I just listen. I look at LinkedIn like SEO. That's the world I love. I love SEO and data and stuff. And like, all I say is LinkedIn does that, right? When you pick a lane or stick to one or two things, the algorithm can feed you. It understands you and it gets that when you do stuff. And we talked about this, Joshua, when you were going to try to pivot, right? You're going to have to give it 30 days if you pivot. Your first few posts are probably going to eat shit, right? They're not going to be great because you're switching your brand a little bit or going off brand. But after like 30 days, that algorithm will start to see where you're going and catch on. So when you stay consistently into your lane that you could speak to, stay there, right? But like these people coming and talking about cold calling your prospects that don't do that for a living. My favorite quote is, "Don't tie my shoes if you haven't walked in my shoes. Don't tell me how to tie them if you don't walk in my shoes," right? Like, you don't understand cold calling, so don't even speak to it or tell me how you think it's easy or, oh, just pick up the phone and talk to somebody. It's not that simple, right? And unless you've done it, don't speak to it. I don't add any value to Jesse's post, right? I don't have much to say because I don't know her world, but I support her and I tell her what I've learned from it or what I've taken from it.
I love your
But I
comments.
can't give back.
They're totally
just can't-
like, you humanize them for me. You deal
There
with
you go.
customer data. We just talk about it differently.
That's it. But I
That's so
try to,
amazing.
I just try to give my takeaway because I can't speak to it. I'm not sitting here being like, oh yeah, do first data. And then everybody goes and looks at my profile and they're like, an SDR leader talking about first data? Like, all right, dude, like, cool.
So,
Because you
Tom,
just steer people wrong. And that's what I think Syed or Brian Essler, right, talked about. Syed, we caught him the other day, right?
Yeah.
You got to be careful because you will steer your audience wrong. And we owe it to our audience and our
what do you
network.
recommend
Yeah.
for people who don't have, like, this is the big challenge, the people who don't have that expertise yet. They're a transitioning teacher. They want to get into sales. They don't have sales experience. They'll watch this podcast and go like, fuck, I'm never going to fucking
Talk
post
about
because
their
I don't
real
have any of this
experience.
expertise.
Build in public.
Talk about
Build in
that.
public.
Put that out
Okay.
there.
They are experts.
They
so
are.
when I
You're
learned,
expert in your life, your intricacies, because the person
better than the bar next to you. That's it. You just have to be a bar above one other person in your life, and you have something to offer. That is expertise. Whether, like, I could go learn a tool
Sure,
today.
but this person that you spoke to, that person that you spoke about posting that wasn't in their lane, they're better than the person next to them still.
Yeah.
So like, in terms of a strategy to build this up, like, what about the comment strategy, right? Where, because you got this advice here of like a third of the people in your network, a third of where you want to be, and a third where you want to be in 5 years' time. Your expertise and your experience might be around like transitioning into sales, but that's, might not get you the sales job necessarily. So like using that comment as a content creation, I feel is like probably the easiest barrier to overcome, where you don't have to create and you can be your authentic self. You can be positive. You can be whatever the hell you want to be, and to who you want to be it, because you get to choose where to comment. And I feel like that's probably something that I would be recommending.
I want to share something on that. Is so yeah, I messaged you yesterday that I need your advice with something. I'm still gonna send you that, but it's a weekend, so I'm not gonna just not gonna let you be. But I'm coming to you because I know why I'm coming to you. I also spoke with Amir, and Amir pointed me in your direction. So it's like that conversation is not going to a lot of other places. I'm not taking that problem to a lot of other people. So why is that so? Because I know you're experiencing that. You come in, if I post that on LinkedIn, I'll never post something like, I don't care about who does or who doesn't, but that's something for an account that I want to move. It's legit advice. I'm lucky I have exposure to all these people, and I know within who I take that to. With all due respect, I can't be having that conversation with Jesse. I can't be having that conversation with Tom. Like, Tom knows his stuff. But this is like, I will be having this conversation with Eric because he knows Salesforce stuff, and you just know your shit. Now, let's take a step back and think about this. Is the place
trusted advisor?
The place where I'm saying where it's scary or irrelevant. Example, let's say I take this conversation to LinkedIn, and this is a purely SaaS related issue where you need help with certain ops and certain things where if you haven't worked in SaaS, it just wouldn't work. I see people, you haven't worked in SaaS. I can tell by your resume you've never gone through that, and you're posting of whatever, like do this, do that, blah blah. I'm just like,
Yeah. Well, Saad, there's a way, and adds to Ricky's, because this is where many of us that were transitioning had to start not necessarily becoming a place of like experts and insight, but how do I start that questions as a, whether you want to call them a noob or an amateur or like just somebody who has no experience. Well, then, for me, I'm going out and I'm approaching somebody like Tom and Saad and Eric, and I'm getting people that have this experience in sales, and I'm asking them kind of what their day to day is. Now that I kind of have an understanding of what sales in general looks like, now I can start making posts about, hey, if I'm a transitioning teacher, sales is good because here's how the activities I have completed, whether it's asking students questions to figure out what the problem they're having is so we can find a solution. And I know that's kind of generic, but it's showing that I understand how I can transition my experience into a new role, and I'm learning, and now I'm bringing value to the people that don't quite haven't got to my area, but those that are hiring will go, okay, well, Josh at least has done the research to see how he can bring value to the role.
So another thing, Josh can be the trusted advisor to teachers. I mean, it's about trusted advisors, right? You've been through that journey. Stella's been through that journey, but I might not be the best advice. I could probably give a couple of hints about someone's resume, but all I do is point people to, hey, talk to Erin or talk to Junaid for resumes, or talk to Annalise or someone else, because they have been in the education space and they can, give you that guided advice. So simple as that, right? And that's where that Saad, that trusted advisor thing comes in. So you have to build that trust among people within tribes, and without as well. You have to go to those communities, not just through LinkedIn, but there's dark social, right? I didn't know Ricky at all. I met him through dark social, and now we're friends, buddies. And Ricky could probably swear at me, and I would not get upset. And stuff like that. That's relationship building, and that takes trust. That's how I define this sort of trust.
There's something that we were talking about in terms of building in public. And I think there's been a lot of talk about how to portray yourself as a thought leader or an expert. But one of the things you can really do to build trust is be vulnerable. That building in public, some of the best posts I've made is where I genuinely had a really hard question. Like, I didn't know how to solve this problem. And so I posted to LinkedIn and tagged a bunch of people who I knew would have a good insight or good opinion on it. I'm like, hey, I really don't know what to do in this situation. I'm okay being vulnerable, but I'm trying to crowdsource the opinion. And guess what? Not only am I getting the value of the comments that get sent back to me by people who are trying to help, but everyone else in the audience who's suffering from that same problem is now getting that same feedback, and we're creating a genuine conversation and a genuine source of new information for the audience. And so I think too many people are spending their time trying to portray themselves as an expert and not being vulnerable enough.
That's a really great point, vulnerability, and that goes back to my earlier point about building relationships in person is very similar to building relationships on LinkedIn, because it's the same thing. And someone just taught me about the Johari window this week. Have you guys ever heard of the Johari window? Yeah, so Amir, fill me in more, because I'm still just starting to explore it. But, the basics of it is, the more vulnerable you are with other people, the more vulnerable they'll be with you. And, then you're all able to grow together. So Amir, add to that.
No, I think that's a, people can probably Google that, but I've been through that through the data space, right? Why it's used, for example, for leadership 360s, and it's very important to drive conversations for leadership as well. So all yours, Jesse. We have about 3 minutes before we cut the live, but who wants to take the last word? Ricky?
I just want to apologize. I just wanted to apologize. I thought you were on my headset microphone, at which I had muted. I didn't realize you're picking up all of the ambience of Melbourne.
Oh, yeah.
I hope you enjoyed your audio tour.
They are the 11th guest.
So what I just wanted to say about building in public and vulnerability, this really happened to me. You guys can see it in public. Is I'm doing this thing called Slack First Sales, and it's so new that I don't have case studies, that I don't have, oh, I made this company this much money, right? And what I did, because I wanted to learn and I wanted to be vulnerable, is I threw this thing out there at that state and was totally authentic that that's where I was at with it, and said, do you want to do this with me, people of LinkedIn? And so the responses that I got were from people I really cared about their opinion, and they were brutal. So, like, for example, this one dude comes in and is like, there's no way I would ever do this, and blah, 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 blah. And my sales ninja I was like, this is a discovery call. So, like, I started just in the comments doing discovery with him. And by the end of it, I have DMs from him where he's like, when you have it built, give me a call, basically. And then, like, the other part of it that really fascinated me was this one guy came at me. And like you talk about having the people up here, your peers, and the people that are like trying to do what you're doing, right? Well, I had a guy come for me that's a peer, like he runs an agency, he does something similar, and it touched a nerve. And what he said to me was, well, you don't have a case study, like question mark, question mark. And I just answered, no, period. And he's like, so what are you going to do? And I was like, I'll give you one when I have it. Thanks for asking about it. But like, that's the point ultimately, is if you say you want to build in public and be vulnerable, be ready for people to tell you you're full of shit and not take it personally.
But
Eat your own pie, I guess. Like, stick to it. Stick to what you're about to do and like go all in.
I've got
That's
Mark
passion.
Benioff. I've got Mark Benioff behind me. I'm good.
I love it.
But does it help you when you give your mean look, Eric?
I mean, that's left over from being a bouncer for 10 years. So, like, you know, sometimes I don't even realize it's there. And, like, on the phone, they're even less likely to notice it than they
Now
do.
I know where I
RBF?
recognize you from. Now I know where I recognize you from, Eric. Now I realize. All right.
Jesse, why don't you close us out for today? And we want to appreciate everybody that came on to watch.
Like, round of applause to all of you. Man, you guys all rock. Thanks, Josh. So to close that out, that was like such an awesome conversation. You guys all provided so much
But
value.
we're
I had a great time. What were
I
you
lost
saying?
all of my following today, so I'm
Could-
excited because nobody's going to follow me
Could
anymore.
I just make one comment? And it's quite
Sure.
unrelated to what we're doing. Like, all of you got in some like really good work today. I got in some really good work and walked 5 kilometers. So just a little note there on mental health and
He's showing
physical
off.
health
He's showing
too.
off.
Go, Ricky. I really enjoyed listening and watching Melbourne. Melbourne?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
However you want to say it. We'll see you all here soon.
Yeah, see
Great
you all
to see
very
you, bud.
soon. Trust gap. So be vulnerable, be your authentic self, put yourself out there, listen, and engage with others. Know who you want to target too. So what else? What did I miss, guys?
I think that's it.
I think you covered it.
Be a good
Alright.
human.
Sad
that
and
is
Tom
all.
are gonna hate you if you post fluff.
No, be a good human. Just be a good human.
Ah, man.
Yeah. So LinkedIn, if you're looking to see if your posts are going to be fluff or not, send
Saad
them
will tell
directly to tom@gmail.com. All right. Bye, guys.
We're still here though.
Yeah.
We'll